Hello, it's Rebecca here from Precious Pages Papercraft, and today's layout is for Mixed Media Frenzy, which is where a group of us get together every Friday for a YouTube hop and we pick a layout to either scraplift or draw inspiration from. So this is this week's layout that we've chosen, and I'm going to be using this cut file from Peartree Cutfiles that I've downloaded and I've cut onto black cardstock. And I've got these hilarious photos of my little boy. I've printed off 4 because I couldn't decide which ones to use, but I decided that 4 looked a bit crowded on the page, so I'm just going to use 2 of them up the top there and then leave that bottom corner on the right free for some journaling. So this week, rather than scrap lifting the original layout in its entirety, I'm literally just drawing some inspiration from it. So I'm going to use the same technique that they've used, but my layout will look completely and utterly different this week. So I wanted to add some stamping to my background, so I'm using a black Stays-On ink, which is permanent and waterproof, so I can add this to my background and then add some mixed media on top, and it's not going to run or smudge at all, which is great for using it as a base with mixed media. So I've picked out a load of rubber stamps and I'm using my acrylic stamping block to add those. I've drawn around my cut file, so I'm just adding these stamps underneath where that will sit. And I'm using a couple of stars, and then I've got some word stamps. One says awesome, one says crazy, and one says weird. And I thought they went really well with my photos. My little boy and I were playing in his tuff tray with some sand and his construction vehicles, and I had the camera out. He just started pulling the most random funny faces at me and kept asking me to take photos of him, which is pretty awesome, crazy and weird. So I thought they went really well. And I think I've got a couple more stars and some exclamation marks, which again I thought were really fitting. So I'm going to leave my cut file open this week, I'm not going to back it at all, and then all this stamping will show through my cut file when I'm finished. So that's how the layout is looking so far. I just need to rub out that pencil line that I drew for my stamping, and because Stays-On is permanent, that rubber isn't going to affect the ink from the stamping at all, which is great. And now this is where I'm going to come in with my mixed media. So this is where I've drawn inspiration from the original layout. I'm using a Mr. Huey's spray in double yellow, I think it's called. And I've mixed it with some water, just a tiny bit, to wet it down a bit, dripped it onto my layout, and I'm using a straw to blow through, which kind of disperses the ink in the kind of pattern you can see there. And that's the technique it looks like they've used on the original. They've used loads of different colours and made it look like a rainbow layout. I'm normally a sucker for a rainbow layout, but I'm also quite impatient with mixed media. And I knew that if I'd done more than one colour on this, I wouldn't have waited for them to dry and they would have all smudged into each other and got muddied on the page, and it wouldn't have looked nearly as pretty. So I'm just sticking to the one colour. So it's going to end up being a monochromatic layout with just black and this yellow colour, it's like a mustard colour. But it goes really well with my photos, so I'm happy with that. But this is literally the inspiration I have drawn from that layout. So rather than scrap lifting it completely, this is the route I'm going down this week, which is nice because the last few Fridays I've pretty much scrap lifted quite close to the original. So it was nice to kind of make this my own this week, but still give a nod to the original layout. So whilst my mixed media is drying, I'm going to back the stars in my cut file with some gold glitter paper, or gold glitter card this is. It's really, really thick stuff. I bought it to go through my silhouette, but it is just way too thick. So I just keep it aside and use it for backing cut files instead. and I'm using glossy accents because I find that my normal PVA tacky glue doesn't hold on this gritted cardstock, whereas the glossy accents does. So I've just backed all of those stars, and now I'm going to cut some really thin strips of adhesive craft foam, and I'm going to add that all behind my cut file so that I can raise it up off my page and just create a bit of dimension and some depth to the layout. On the original layout, they've got what looks like a strip down the right hand side. I haven't got space to do that on mine, so what I've decided to do is to add some patterned paper strips just that I've torn to the top and bottom of my layout. And this is a black and white paper, and it's from the Vicky Boutin Colour Kaleidoscope collection. Apologies for the background noise. I've got my 4-year-old boy sat in the room with me playing with his train tracks as I do this. So just at the top there behind the patterned paper strip, I've decided I want to add a bit more of that mixed media. So exactly the same technique, adding some big drops of the watered down paint and just blowing it through a straw. I'm using double-sided tape and foam pads to stick these strips of patterned paper down. The edge that I've torn, I'm using the foam pads just to add a bit more dimension. I really do like to have a lot of texture and dimension on my layout, so quite often a lot of things get raised up onto foam pads. So now I'm just sticking my cut file down. I'm just adding some PVA glue to the back of it on that foam that I added. And this is just slightly watered down PVA glue that I've got in a fine liner bottle, which is great for working with cut files because it comes out nice and fine and doesn't splodge all over my layout. You might have noticed I keep putting the centre of the letters back in and then taking them back out. I couldn't decide whether to have them in or not, and in the end I decided it looked a bit too cluttered with my stamping, so I've decided to leave those out. You can still see that that says ordinary, so yeah, I just decided against using them. I've added a few staples to my layout there just to add a bit more texture. I've done 2 in the top left and 2 in the bottom right. And then I've used some staples in the centre there just to keep my photos together. And now I'm just trying to bring in a bit more of that kind of mustard yellow colour. So I've just torn a strip of textured basil cardstock to place behind my photos there at the top. So now I can think about embellishing my layout. I've got this lovely golden camera paperclip here that I've added to the top right, and I think that came from Paper Maze in one of my design team boxes, and it never got used for some reason, so I've added that to this layout. And then I've got a chipboard frame there, it's yellow and white, kind of like starburst. That's by Chamel from one of her collections. And then this is the sticker book from Vicky Boutin's Colour Kaleidoscope collection, and I just went through that just to see if there was anything I could find to add on. I've picked off a couple of word stickers there, and now I'm just playing with a few flares, trying to decide if I can make those work. It's quite hard to embellish this layout because it appears that mustard yellow is not a widely used colour in craft supplies, so I didn't have an awful lot in the colours I'd chosen to use. So I've managed it, but not as much embellishing as I would normally do on my layouts. As you can see here, I've pulled out loads of sticker sheets, just going through, seeing if there's anything I can use. And I pull a few things off and just have a play with them. A lot of it I don't end up using. My stamping is quite busy on that background, so I didn't want to add too much and make it too much busier. But I wanted to get some things on there. So I've got this sticker here. Says something like crazy cool kid, I think it says. So I'm going to use that as well. And then I wanted to bring a bit more texture to the page. So I've got a bag of, these are like ribbons and deco web, with cheesecloth in there, sequin waste, I've got all sorts. That yellow web ribbon I pulled out there was not the right colour, so that got vetoed straight away. And replaced with some black netting. And this is some sequin waste, or it's punchinella I've seen it called. I'm just roughly trimming that so it's not a straight edge, and then I'm just going to add a strip either side of my photo clusters there. So whilst I'm just sticking all of that down, I'll take the opportunity to just let you know there's a few of us taking part in today's hop. It's our usual Friday gang, so the other ladies will be either scrap lifting or taking inspiration from exactly the same layout as me, probably more closely than I have. So please do have a watch of their videos. I will leave the links to their channels in the description box below, so do work your way through the hop. And if you can subscribe as well, I'm sure they would all appreciate that very much. So that's most of the things on my page stuck down into place now. I'm just having to use my tape dispenser there to stick those stars down. And it took a break. Obviously people in my house needed feeding, they needed some dinner, so I've had to come back in the evening to finish this layout off. And I've got this sticker, but the centre parts didn't come out when I removed it from the sheet, so I'm just having to poke those out with a paper piercing tool. I'm just going to add that over onto the left there. I thought that was so fitting, crazy cool kid. That perfectly explains or describes my son in these photos. And because I've got foam behind the photos, I just had to raise the left side up there on foam pads. And now I'm back to these flares, trying to make these work. I'm going to add some black thread behind that yellow one at the top there. I'm just trying to make it a cluster. This thread is no good for doing thread clusters. It has a mind of its own and doesn't stay where you want it to. So it takes me a while to get that right. And I'm just going to slot it under that patterned paper tear there, and just stick my fine liner bottle under and try and glue that into place. Because I've got the gold glitter card behind my cut file for my stars, I wanted to bring a little bit more gold in. So I've got a metallic gold thread here, and I love this thread. It behaves so much better than my other coloured threads. It's by Real Memory Keepers, and it does what you want it to do. You can wrap it around your fingers and it will just stay as you put it. So I love working with that. And I've just added a couple of tangles there, either side of my photos. I've added a bit of foam behind that flare just so I can get that stuck down. And my trusty tape dispenser making an appearance again. And then I've just got a few of these word stickers that I'm just going to dot around my page to finish off. So that's pretty much me done with the embellishing. I wanted to make the word extra stand out a bit more. So I've got these two Nouveau drops. The colour I really wanted to use, which is this one, just wasn't coming out very well at all. I think it's just got too cold in my craft room and clogged up. So I've had to go with the lighter yellow, which is, I think it's a Nouveau Vintage Drops, I think it's called. And I'm going to add that to the word extra in a minute. I've also got these Bramble Fox perspectives. If you're in the UK, you probably know about Bramble Fox. They are amazing acrylic pieces. I've got a pack of hearts here that had a couple of gold ones in, which were perfect for this layout. So they come with like a protective film over the front and back that you just peel off. And then these are really glittery as well, so they worked really well with my stars there. So I just added 3 of those, and I stick my perspectives down with glossy accents just to make sure they hold. And I'm trying those Nouveau drops again, but still not working, so I'm going to use this vintage one. I'm just going over the word extra with some dots, and that just helps it stand out a bit more. And now I wanted to add some journaling to my page. I'd purposely left this bottom right corner free for that. I've got some wooden alphabet stamps I'm going to use to try and add my journaling in. It's quite time consuming because each letter is individual, and I'm just using the same Stays On ink. So I've drawn some faint pencil lines on my page, and then I'm just going to go through and add my journaling letter by letter. Quite painstaking, I don't do this often. I'll skip through most of it for you because it does take me a while. So there we go, that's my journaling done, and that's my layout complete. So as you can see, it looks totally different to the original, but I have drawn inspiration from that paint blowing on my background there. So thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that subscribe button, and if you hit the description box, you can find the links to all the other ladies' channels as well. It'd be great if you could make your way through the hop and watch their videos too. So thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.